right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beyond Breathing podcast. In today's episode, we are joined by world-renowned expert in health and wellness, and it is a true honor to have him here today to share his expertise with us. Sachin Patel founded the Living Proof Institute as part of his own personal transformation. When he couldn't find answers through conventional medicine, he began to explore the world of functional and lifestyle medicine, and it's between his lectures, workshops, videos, and social media, he's reached millions all over the world. He's an advocate for changing the healthcare paradigm and has devoted his life to the betterment of humanity. By example, as a proud father, husband, and chiropractor, he's on a mission to motivate others to take ownership of their own health. One of my favorite quotes of yours is that the patient is actually the doctor of the future. I absolutely love that. He is a passionate visionary, serves as both a teacher and a guide to help people create their best life and bring out their own inner healer. So first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Patel, for being here today and giving us your time. I'm really excited for you to share your expertise with our audience. So thank you.
Lancette, it's my absolute pleasure. I'm really excited for our conversation today and looking forward to where this takes us. This is such an important topic, and I'm so glad that you're shining, your brilliant light on it and bringing it to, more awareness, because I wish I had learned this many, many years ago, as you'll soon find out.
Yes, I agree. I've been on a mission for better breathing, better sleep for a few years now. And I agree. I wish I would have known it for myself, but most importantly, I wish I would have known it for my children. My children are now teenagers and into college. And I think that where we have the best opportunity is by helping children breathe from the very, very beginning, from their first days, through their school years. And I think that's really the future of healthcare in my mind. So before we brainstorm about how people can heal themselves and some great tips and strategies and techniques that you have, primarily focusing on the power of breathing, why don't we start off by having you tell us just a bit more about your own personal health journey?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally trained as a chiropractor. You can't take that out of me because of my philosophy that the body has the innate ability to heal when we provide it with the right environment and remove with the things that are interfering with our body functioning optimally. And so that's my core belief. It's the guiding principle in my life. And since then I've kind of evolved. So in addition to being a chiropractor and bleeding and breathing chiropractic, so to speak, I became a functional medicine practitioner when I couldn't find answers for my patients. And through the process, I was able to transform my own health. I didn't realize how, poor my health was until I actually experienced great health. And then from there, I started coaching practitioners. And then from there, our practice has continued to evolve. And my quest has always been to discover essentially the zenith of simplicity and sophistication. And what I discovered in my journey is that it's actually the breath. And it's one of those things that it's hard to believe that it has such a profound effect on our health. And I will admit that I was introduced to the concept of breathing, maybe not, it wasn't presented to me in a way that it intrigued me enough to take action. But, it was presented to me many years ago, but I just kind of brushed it off. I'm like, everyone breathes. Like, what difference does it make? And I never grew up having breathing challenges. So I don't think I fully appreciated the power of breathing and maybe took it for granted. It wasn't until my son went to the dentist for the first time and he had a mouthful of cavities, which was shocking to us because we went to the dentist thinking, oh my God, get ready, make sure you're dressed up. They're going to take pictures of us as the best parents ever because our child's going to have the best teeth they've ever seen. And turns out he had a mouthful of cavities. And we were just like left there embarrassed, kind of scratching our heads, wondering what the hell? Like, he doesn't eat chocolate, or not chocolate, but he doesn't eat junk food. He doesn't eat sugary foods and candies and all these things we've been like depriving him of, if you will. And he ends up in like the worst place possible. And I'm like, I've never had a cavity in my entire life. So I don't even know what that feels like. I don't know, what the procedures are like to address a cavity. So again, kind of taking my own, perhaps oral health and breathing for granted, because not everyone not everyone breathes that way, right? Not everyone, is able to breathe correctly. And so with him, we discovered that he was a mouth breather, but we didn't discover it until little later on as his teeth started coming in when we went to the dentist, and the dentist said he's going to have some teeth pulled because you see these teeth up here, they're not going to come down. And I'm like, hmm. That's when the chiropractor in me kicked in, and I said, I know God don't make no junk. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with him. There must be something wrong with the stimulus. And around that time, I started learning about James Nestor's book. And James was talking about palatal expanders and airway dentistry and opening up the palate and things like that. And I was like, I wonder if this makes sense. So then I read the book cover to cover, listened to it as well. And I went to the orthodontist and I said, hey, like, have you read this book? And he said, no. And I said, okay, you're not my orthodontist anymore. Um, so then we found an airway dentist who specializes in that. And now he's got palatal expanders put in. He's got his teeth have all come down nicely. His jaw is nice and wide, and his upper palate is beautifully developed. His respiration and breathing has improved significantly. So, just a total, completely different path we ended up going down because I read a book. And once I read that book, I never read a book just for myself or my family. I was reading it, I realized, for all of my patients, because what was detailed and described in that book for me opened up a Pandora's box of exploration. And for the last like 3.5 years, I've been going down that rabbit hole. So I studied, I used to teach head and neck anatomy as a tutor when I was in school. It's always, you always look back and wonder, why am I doing this? What am I learning from this? When will I ever use this? Turns out I get to use it all the time now because I'm describing and showing cross sections of people's heads and facial muscles and stuff like that in some of my presentations that I do. So I used to teach head and neck anatomy. And so this area of the body is always kind of really fascinating. I've always been really intrigued. When I learned about James Nestor's work, that intrigued me on facial structure and intrigued me on how to go a little bit deeper. So I took a training in the art of living, which is the same training that James Nestor took. He writes about it in his book. I also took a training on how to become a breathwork facilitator. And I think, at the event, you had an opportunity to experience what a facilitated breathwork experience is like. So I've, kind of married both of these worlds together now, the science of breathing and then also the experience of breathing to create transformational experiences for people. And so that's what I love talking about. So that's kind of been, I know it's a long version of my story, but I think it hopefully gives people some insights into what I've been seeking, the simplest solution that is the lead domino that moves people's health in the right direction. Something that, you said passionately about helping kids. I had to help my own son. And it turns out my wife used to suck her thumb as a child. So she's got an upper palate that is pushed upwards. And she had a tongue tie herself, and she struggled with chronic low-grade anxiety. And, we were able to address some of those issues for her as well. So it's something that's touched my life very intimately personally. Airway dentistry has, as of course breathing has, and it's something that's touched my life personally because it's the thing that I think about the most every day, and I talk about the most with my clients, that I've seen makes the fastest and what I believe to be the longest lasting difference in their health.
Oh, I love it so much. So can you touch on why we breathe? I think all of us do it. I don't remember how many breaths we take every single day, but we do it with very little training or really acknowledgement about how it serves us and how disordered breathing doesn't serve us. And can you just remind us, why do we breathe and how are we doing it wrong?
Yeah, and maybe some of us are doing it wrong, maybe some of us aren't, right? And so in all fairness, if you're not breathing consciously, you're breathing wrong. Because when you are breathing consciously, you're not just controlling whether you're breathing in and out through your nose, but you're controlling the cadence and the depth of your breath as well. So imagine driving a car without a steering wheel, right? That's what having a body and not being conscious about your breathing is like. So it's like having a supercar without a steering wheel. So what I tell people is that if you want to take control of your car, what's the first thing you grab? You grab the steering wheel, right? And now you're in control, right? And then what else do? You maybe push on the gas, or you hit the brakes. Well, the pace at which we breathe is like the accelerator or the brakes for our nervous system. So we breathe for a variety of reasons. One of them is to remove CO2. CO2 is a toxic molecule that accumulates as a byproduct of cellular respiration. So in the mitochondria, the byproducts of ATP production are water and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is an important signaling molecule, and we need to remove it. And that's where the urgency to breathe actually comes from. With every breath we take, we only absorb about a quarter of the oxygen that we inhale at any given breath, which means that the majority of it actually gets expelled in our breath. The CO2, however, is what signals our nervous system to tell us and create the urge for us to breathe. Okay. So what's interesting is that when we inhale, that's usually an active act by the nervous system. The exhale is a passive act unless we do it intentionally. Okay. We also breathe so that we can fuel, the mitochondria. The only place we use oxygen is in the mitochondria. We breathe to regulate pH. So the main organ to regulate the pH in our body is not just our kidneys, but the main organ and the fastest organ that we can use is our lungs. So our lungs help us regulate pH. So I can change the alkalinity in your system based on how you breathe. We also use our breath. Every time our lungs breathe, our lungs inflate. And in a finite space, such as the rib cage, the lungs squeeze inwards. So they actually squeeze the heart with every breath that we take. So when we're breathing really fast, we're actually assisting the heart in pumping more blood to our arms and legs, right? And that makes total sense. You want to breathe hard and fast when you're running, right? So you can actually fuel the response. The breath also moves the lymph. So when we breathe, our diaphragm moves up and down. And what that does is it creates intra-abdominal pressure that gently squeezes the lymph out of the trunk organs, right? So our lymphatic system is wrapped and woven into our musculature in our periphery, right? So in our arms and legs, when we move our arms and legs, that moves the lymph back to the thoracic duct. However, in our trunk organs, we don't really have that system. So our diaphragm is that main piston that moves up and down with every breath that we take, gently moving the lymph. Some of the biggest lymph nodes in our body are underneath our diaphragm. So if we take short, shallow breaths, we're not moving lymph, we're not assisting the heart appropriately. We also use breath to regulate our emotions. So if I want you to feel a certain way, what I can do is I can teach you a certain breathing pattern or breathing signature, and I can create the emotion. So for example, if I have you laughing, even though you don't know why you're laughing, but just go through the motions of laughing, the breathing signature of laughing, eventually you'll start laughing because you'll start making the chemistry in your body that way. So we use our breath to regulate our neurotransmitter production and our emotions as well. We also use our breath to increase circulation. So if we want to increase peripheral circulation, we can do that through our breath. We can use our breath to regulate our temperature. So I can teach certain breathing techniques to increase and lower body temperature. For example, a dog, when it's hot, what does it do? It sticks its tongue out and starts panting, right? And that's what it's doing, that to regulate its body temperature. Human beings kind of do the same thing. We can use certain breathing techniques to raise our core temperature as well. There's a breath called the Ujjayi breath, or the victory breath, that raises our core temperature. We can also use breath to have spiritual experiences. So something like what you've experienced, where we do transformational breathing, and it can take you into altered states of consciousness where we can rewrite the subconscious programming that's holding us back. So there's many reasons that we breathe. It's not just to stay alive, which is what most people think. We can use our breath consciously to create all of these different physiological effects in our body. Because breathing is so essential, right? Breathing, the apparatus for breathing is in the core part of our brainstem, right? That's how essential it is. And so it's something that we do unconsciously. And it's something that we can't even, it's really interesting because you cannot hold your breath, to kill yourself. So it's a self-regulating mechanism. You can completely dehydrate yourself and die. You can stop eating and you'll eventually die. And that's a conscious decision, but you cannot hold your breath and kill yourself. That's how essential it is, because you actually pass out and then you start breathing again automatically.
Very interesting. So we know that breathing properly really affects everything from mental, physical, and spiritual health. How do people know if they're breathing properly or not? What is the best way for us to breathe, like on a normal everyday basis?
Yeah. So normal breathing is a great question, is with your mouth closed, unless you're talking, of course, or unless you're in a strained situation. We'll talk about the different gears of breathing in a moment, but you want to breathe with your mouth closed and your jaw nice and relaxed. Many people clench their teeth, which, as you know, is not good for their jaw, their TMJ, or their teeth. And it just kind of is a lot of times associated with stress. We want to place our tongue at the roof of our mouth. So the tip of our tongue should be gently placed behind the back of our front two teeth, and then about 80% of our tongue at the roof of our mouth. Gently place it. We're not pushing the tongue there. We're just keeping it in a nice relaxed position at the roof. Your tongue is actually a postural muscle. So people who have chronic neck pain, oftentimes by putting their tongue in the roof of their mouth, it holds the front of their head up. It's kind of an interesting muscle. The next is we want to breathe in and out for about 6 seconds. This type of breathing is called coherence breathing. So if you want to increase oxygenation to your brain, if you want to increase focus and mental clarity, if you want your brain and heart to be connected, right? You're going to do some deep work, for example, or read a book, or be present with your family. Then the 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out is called coherence breathing. That's the breath that I go back to every single time I think of my breath. And it's not that I breathe that way all the time. Sometimes, just like when I'm driving my son to school, I'm not like clinging onto the steering wheel the whole time, right? There's times where you kind of let go. But every so often I come back to my breath. I come back to the steering wheel. So 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. We want to breathe slow and steady, not necessarily deep and sharp with every breath that we take. That would be weird. That would be like somebody taking a full stride every step they take when they're walking, right? Each breath is about 500 milliliters. So it's not a lot of air that we have to take in. Most people actually overbreathe. Okay. So Lancette, a really fun fact is that we breathe in about 30 pounds of air a day. We only consume a
Wow.
couple of pounds of food a day, but we breathe in with the 23,000 breaths that we take 30 pounds of air every day, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, right?
So can
It's
we
like,
lose weight by actually breathing better?
yes, you can, because your breath informs your nervous system to be in a state of relaxation and fat burning, or in a state of fight or flight, which is glucose burning. So a lot of times, and people may not know this, but for every 10 pounds that you lose, 8.4 of those pounds is through your lungs. So the CO2, which is the byproduct of mitochondrial respiration, that gets put out obviously into the blood and then carried out through the lungs. And so the majority of the weight that we actually lose is actually through our lungs. The rest of it is water. So we pee it out, and some of it we breathe out, right? We breathe out moisture with every breath that we take as well.
Oh, that's fascinating. I can't wait to have you back and do a deeper dive into many of these things. We know that breathing can help us with bone health and prostate health and mental health and hormones and weight. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I was wondering if you could just touch a little bit on the difference between breathing through your nose and breathing through your mouth.
Yeah, great question. So uh, the we have two orifices in our face that we can breathe through, right? And some people ask, like, well, if we shouldn't be able to breathe through our mouth, why can we? And my response is because you wouldn't be able to talk otherwise, right? So we need our mouth to be able to talk, and we need to move air over our vocal cords to be able to do that. So that's the reason we have a mouth, right? There's going to be times where we need to breathe through our mouth, and we'll talk through that in just a moment. But let's talk about why we should breathe through our nose, and contrast it between breathing through our mouth. So you probably know the answer to this, Lancette. Most dentists listening to this and hygienists would know this too. What is the dirtiest part of your body?
The mouth.
It's your mouth, right?
Yeah.
All of our mouths, right? There's just like tons of
Yes.
bacteria in there, and those bacteria don't belong in our lungs. So every time we breathe in through our mouth, we're inhaling particles and particulate of that bacteria, which then ends up, causing this constant immune upregulation. Because when we breathe through our nose, the nose sterilizes the air. So it's the exact opposite. The quality control of the air, there's no quality control in the mouth. In fact, it makes the air dirtier, right? So whatever the outside air is, it's dirtier after going through your mouth. It doesn't get cleaner. And versus going through your nose, it gets temperature regulated, it gets moisture regulated. The particulate is removed through the cilia and the nose hairs. It pressurizes the air, so you're able to get 20% more oxygen into the alveoli. Okay. It preserves oral health because mouth breathing is the #1 cause of cavities. It disinfects the air. It kills the bacteria and viruses that are coming in because our nose, our mucosa in our nose makes nitric oxide, and nitric oxide is antiviral and antibacterial. And nitric oxide also dilates our blood vessels. And nitric oxide helps lower blood pressure. And nitric oxide helps us have better sexual function. So when we breathe through our nose, we get some additional benefits of nitric oxide. So the air is sterilized, and then breathing through the nose actually has an antidiuretic effect. So people who breathe through their mouth, especially at nighttime, are much more likely to wake up in the middle of the night and have to use the bathroom. They're much more likely to wake up with a dry mouth and drink more water and then have to use the bathroom even more. So when we contrast the mouth and the nose, it's a complete no-brainer, so to speak. When you understand why breathing through the nose, the benefits that it has, it completely trumps breathing through the mouth. Now, there are times when we breathe through our mouth. There's 3 gears of breathing. The first gear is the one we talked about, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, breathing in and out through the nose, tongue at the roof of the mouth. Second gear would be in through the nose, out through the mouth. So when I'm having a conversation, I know I'm talking really fast right now, so I'm going to be breathing through my mouth. But if I'm having a calm, gentle conversation, I'm going to breathe in through my nose, and then I'm going to start talking again, right? So a lot of times that's going to be how we breathe when we talk. So we breathe in through our nose, out through our mouth. With mild exertion, we might do that as well. The third gear of breathing is in and out through our mouth. So this is life or death situation, right? Tongue's hanging out of our mouth. We're just going for it, right? We're just trying to move as much air as we can. And the reason we're doing that is not because we need more oxygen. The reason we're doing that is because we're pumping our heart, right? We're squeezing our heart with every breath that we take, and that's allowing for better circulation to get to the musculature. So it's not just because we need more air. We actually don't need more air, because the higher the concentration of CO2 is, the more oxygen you actually get dumped at the tissue. We're breathing because the breath assists in actually fueling sending the blood to the periphery and to the muscles so that we can continue to run away from whatever is chasing us. So there's more to breathing than oxygen. That's what I hope people take away from this talk. It actually serves it serves your nervous system. It mechanically serves your body. It moves the lymph. It moves circulation. It cleanses the air. It regulates the pH. I mean, it does so many things beyond just providing us oxygen. That's just like one of the things that it does, right? But it's one of those things that, because it impacts so many other areas in our life, this one domino, when you knock it down, addresses so many different things in somebody's overall health and wellness.
Oh, it's so fascinating. Thank you so much. I was hoping maybe before we wrap up, if you have time, could you lead us through maybe a great breathing exercise or activity that people at home, or when they get home from their commute, can maybe implement right away to help improve the quality of their lives? I hope again that we get to have you back some other time where we can touch on some more in-depth subjects. But if you could just kind of close us out with a great breathing activity, it would be a really great treat for our audience.
Sure. So I'm going to share one, and then we'll demonstrate one. So I focus with my clients, and I want everyone to walk away from this with the idea of changing every breath of every single day. If you can have that level of awareness, then you can be in control of your whole body in every single moment, right? And the yogis have figured this out. It's been evidenced over thousands of years. Now, what I want people to think about is how they breathe when they're not awake, right? So we've talked about, conscious breathing and having that awareness, but what happens when you're sleeping? So about 2/3 of people sleep with their mouth open at night. So one thing I encourage everyone to look into is something called mouth taping. So using a surgical tape, like a 3M micropore tape, and placing just a little vertical piece of tape like this, you can still talk through your mouth. You can still sip through a straw if you needed to, and you can still breathe through your mouth. But what this does, it keeps your jaw in a closed position and your tongue at the roof of your mouth. What that'll do is it'll relax the tension in your jaw and ensure that you're breathing in and out through your nose. Mouth taping is probably the single most powerful tools that we give our patients. And I get testimonials every single day about how much it's improved people's life. So simple, pennies a day. and it's gonna make a huge impact on your health. So that's one thing that people can do that we didn't talk about today. Then I just want to bring it to their attention. The other tool I want to give them is, if you just learn one breathing technique, it's called a physiologic sigh. And the physiologic sigh is a great way to use a normal breathing signature that we already have, which is sighing, right? Normally we sigh, we feel a sense of relief, and then we sigh. However, we can also control how we feel by how we breathe, which means that I can sigh intentionally and maybe a little bit more deeply, and I could do it a few more times, and then I can actually create the emotion of relief in my body. So that's what we're going to do right now. It's really simple. You're going to sit up nice and straight. And you're going to take your tongue and put it at the roof of your mouth. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose, filling the belly, filling the chest and lungs, and going all the way to the top. And then one more, a couple more packs of air through the mouth. And holding that just for a few moments, and then squeezing your pelvic floor. So just really tightening everything up. And then letting it out with an audible sigh on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Another deep breath in through the nose. A few more sips at the top with the mouth. Squeeze your pelvic floor. And on the count of 3, let it out with a sigh. 1, 2, 3. All the way out. And one last breath, deepest breath you've taken all year. In through the nose, tongue at the roof of the mouth. All the way in, pack a few more breaths with your mouth. Squeeze your pelvic floor. And on the count of 3, you're going to release with an audible sigh. Release your pelvic floor and let it all out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and you can find your normal breathing pattern. 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out.
Oh, that feels amazing already. I feel like we would all be much happier and healthier if we probably did that a few times a day, or in between calls, or in between patients, or while we're commuting, or helping our children with homework. Or that is very, very helpful. Thank you so much. So how can people find you or connect with you after today if they want to learn more? We're going to have you back on another podcast for sure. But in between times, how can people find you?
I appreciate you asking. I created a resource. Maybe this is helpful for your audience, where I share my top 5 resources, including a fully guided breathwork experience, a keynote presentation that I've done on the topic. People can access the slides if they want. So I'm happy to share that with your audience. It's just a simple link that they can go to, so we can put that in the show notes. Another place that people can go, if they like the simplicity of what we're talking about today, and they want to learn other things that they can do to become healthier for themselves, perhaps even share it with their patients if they want, I created a program called 30 Ways in 30 Days. So if you go to 30in3030and30.org, it's a completely free 30-day program where I share my 30 best tips. So if somebody were to, if they were to just say, hey, where do I start, Sachin? And they came in to see me as a patient, I tell them these 30 things first, get them doing these things first. And then if they're still in need of help and need my support, then I'm happy to help them. But my goal is to keep people out of my practice. It's to teach them to be their own doctor. And this 30 in 30 program is exactly that. And then if people are looking for help, then they can always find us at becomeproof.com.
I think I saw you had some books on Amazon too, right?
I do, yeah. So there's one book called the Motivation Molecule, which is about dopamine. There's another book called Become Proof, which is all about the living proof lifestyle that we teach people. And then I've got another book on practice management called Perfect Practice. So, and then we have a podcast for practitioners, functional medicine and holistic practitioners. We've got a podcast that teaches them how to develop their businesses.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You are so inspirational. I know that you've already helped me in my private practice as a dental hygienist and at a sleep and airway center. We hope that we can reach as many people in this world as we can by better breathing and better sleep and better growth and development so we can all thrive. And I look forward to chatting with you again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Lancette. It's been an absolute pleasure, and keep doing this amazing work. Keep spreading the message, and let's hopefully we can work together to keep helping people feel better one breath at a time.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much. Bye bye.